This freeze will require painful cuts. Already we've frozen the salaries of hard-working federal employees for the next 2 years. I propose cuts to things I care deeply about, like community action programs.
Welcome to Captions. So glad you joined us again. Tonight we have a very special program which is hosted by a person that many of you may remember. He was the founder, in fact, of Captions, Michael Banks, who was on location in Chicago at a special meeting where they were talking about the struggles of the community action agencies. Stay tuned. You'll listen and learn something, I guarantee you.
Well, I'm delighted to be here once again to visit my old friends. We're going to give you a special opportunity to visit the Illinois Association of Community Action Agencies on location at their winter conference. And we're just going to kind of chat informally with some of the members of the association. And I have with me now on my left, Litso Solomoyo and Chris White. Welcome to Captions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things we would like to talk about, not only the issue of the conference currently, but given what we see going on at the federal level, community action is facing a lot of challenges. Let's talk a little bit about first, what is the Illinois Association of Community Action Agencies and what challenges do you see for your members?
Sure. We are, the Illinois Association of Community Action Agencies is a statewide membership organization. We were founded in 1971 to represent the community action agencies on the state level. Our membership is consisted of 40 agencies throughout the state of Illinois, providing services to low-income individuals and families in all 102 counties of the state. And so our organization provides a collective voice for our membership, both at the state level as well as at the national level. We're part of a national network that is consisted of about 1,100 community action agencies.
That's nationwide?
That's nationwide.
You know, sometimes I think our audience, we take for granted that they know exactly what a community action agency is, but for the few that may not,
sure.
I mean, the entity itself, what is a community action agency?
Well, a community action agency, essentially, if we go back in history, back in 1964, President Lyndon Johnson essentially launched the war on poverty through the passage of legislation called the Economic Opportunity Act. And with that, there were resources made available for local communities to be able to address poverty issues at the local level. So the resources that were made available resulted in these organizations being created to effectively address poverty. And we have, the community action agencies are very unique compared to other organizations in the sense that if you look at their governance structure, they have representation from pretty much all sectors of the community. So you have the poor represented on the governing board of a community action agency. You have the private sector, and you also have the public sector.
Okay. Public sector, what does that mean?
That would mean either representation from the county level, or it could be representation from the city. So elected officials can serve on a community action board, or they can have a designee represent them on that. So what that does is it allows the agency to provide what we call maximum feasible participation, and allows pretty much the community to have a say in how the agency can address the poverty issues at that level.
Okay. Chris, your role as a member, tell us about your agency organization.
Sure. I'm actually the director of Will County Center for Community Concerns. Also, I am the board chair. The association has a board of directors of 15, correct? 15? And we actually provide support to the association. We will keep the association up to date on any issues that organizations have, and help provide support to the staff. Our Community Action Agency, again, is one of many, but I think every community really faces the same challenges, but maybe differently of some sort.
Are there services that are delivered through the organization?
And the services, our services, some agencies actually have the same services, and it depends on the needs of each community of what your services are. So in Will County, for example, we are facing high foreclosure rates. So we, of course, are working very diligently on working with that. But again, it just really depends on each agency's needs.
There's been some discussion of late about cuts and their acronym, you know, the alphabet soup at the federal government, some CSBG. Tell us about that acronym and what it means and how it relates to community action.
The Community Services Block Grant, known as CSBG, is probably one of the last remnants of the war on poverty in terms of funding. It is federal funding that is funded through the Department of Health and Human Services, specifically through the Office of Community Services within that department. The funding is a block grant. It comes to Illinois, and we have the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity that administers the grant at the state level. The uniqueness about that funding, and we, you know, it's about $700 million nationally, but it is the most flexible funding that the Community Action Network has in terms of their ability to use that funding to address specific poverty issues or needs at the local level. It is funding that only goes to community action agencies. 90% of that funding goes directly to the community action agencies. It is essentially through that how community action is defined. We are the only network of organizations that has federal legislation that designates us as an anti-poverty organization at the local level. And with that, the Community Services Block Grant funding allows the agencies or enables the agencies to address poverty needs at the local level.
I know we were going to talk about challenges, okay? Some of the statistics of late suggest the need, the incidence of poverty, problems with the recession has affected low income severely. So are they contemplating giving you all some increased funding to deal with this bigger problem?
No, they're not. I don't know if you wanted to address it, but you know, it's been sort of a roller coaster ride for us as community action. You know, it was just 3 years ago that we were part of the nation's efforts to respond to the economic downturn. And with that, there were some stimulus resources made available. Some of that was made available through some of the programs that community action agencies administer. And so we went from having a windfall in resources to now facing drastic cuts to our funding.
What would be the logic of reducing resources at a time when the need is exploding?
Well, you've had a...
I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just being logical. Maybe you all can help me.
Well, I really can't foresee why that would really happen. The needs are huge. I don't believe that we've seen a huge decrease in the need, as some people have thought. So I don't know that there is maybe a good reason. I mean, I'm sure people would argue the deficit, and we need to address that. But we certainly don't need to address it on the people that we serve. And that is a huge concern of ours.
Well, let's talk about this challenge. Sounds like you're posing a huge challenge there. Folks in the viewing audience who share your passion, what is the challenge and how can they be part of helping address the challenge?
Well, you know, certainly having their voices heard, and you know, most of the majority of the folks that are served by community action agencies don't have, you know, the expensive lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Or in Springfield to advocate on their behalf. And so, you know, community action agencies, we take that opportunity to let our elected officials and policymakers know that some of these decisions that they're contemplating or making in Washington, D.C. have an adverse effect, particularly on the most poor in our communities. We have seen here in the last few years responses that have assisted, you know, the motor industry and banks and others, but yet we are, you know, really letting down, you know, the common person on the back streets of America. We're not really helping them out.
What about other programs? I hear about energy, I hear about Head Start, weather and those kinds of things. What is it? Are they subject to the same challenge we're discussing?
Yes, actually, there has been talks of cutting utility assistance. There have been talks of cutting weatherization in the coming years. So yes, I believe that every program that serve our customers really are being affected by what is going on in Washington and at the state level.
What is the current strategy, so to speak, to speak to those who are going to be participating in decisions whether to make or go or stay at these programs? How do you communicate with them?
One of the things that we did earlier on this year, once the budget was announced or released and we found out that there were these significant cuts that were being proposed, we, the association, asked our membership to do an impact analysis of how these cuts were going to not only affect their customers, but their ability to effectively provide services in their community. We took all that information and that was shared with all of our members of Congress in Washington. We also encouraged our members to have meetings with their congressional member at the district level, and again provide, you know, that information to show them how those cuts would have an impact in their congressional district. So this was part of a national strategy, so it wasn't just in Illinois, but throughout the country, the same information was being shared. And I would say that because of those efforts, I think we have, even though we're not out of the woods yet, but we've managed to convince Congress not to cut us drastically. So, but we're still in the fight. But I think we're sort of cautiously optimistic at this point.
I know that at the national level there's an effort to raise our concerns about nutrition and feeding kids, and oftentimes Head Start is probably one of the best meals young folks are going to get. With the threat of cutting, how would that issue be addressed if some of the kids couldn't go to Head Start anymore?
That would be
Yeah, to be honest with you, there probably would be kids that couldn't go to Head Start. Depending on the cuts agencies are going to experience, there are going to be people that we cannot help, people that we can't serve, and there will be unmet needs.